The story opens on a battlefield drowned in fire and fury. A young boy with fiery red hair, clad in shining armor, stands calmly with a sword in hand. Despite the towering threat before him, he offers a small smile. A massive dragon, shrouded in its own raging fire, roars in defiance. Beneath its shadow, the boy and his party prepare for battle. Without hesitation, the boy suddenly dashes toward the dragon. His teammates spring into action, covering him with ranged magic and attacks. A saintess steps forward, quickly conjuring a magic circle beneath her, her hands glowing with holy power. In a graceful leap, the boy launches himself high into the air. Suspended above the dragon, he raises his sword with precision, preparing to strike. A fairy girl from the party, light and elegant, cheers for him from below, shouting, "Go for it, Luke!" With a single deadly motion, the blade descends. The boy's strike is perfect. It slices clean through the dragon's neck. The enormous beast crashes to the ground, its head separated from its body. Cheers erupt from the party. Their expressions shine with pride. Luke, now standing tall before the fallen dragon's head, calmly slides his sword back into its scabbard. He stands like a true hero. Later, the group sets up a camp near the slain dragon's body. A bonfire flickers softly in the darkness, casting long shadows. Luke sits by the fire and glances at the others, asks about the detail of next job. The gray-bearded old man looks up and answers that another dragon will we tough one, while Saintess, smiling, looks at Luke and say that he will be fine. However, Luke responds firmly that we all will be fine. Suddenly, everything changes. A blood-covered hand trembles in the darkness. Luke collapses to his knees, a gaping hole torn through his chest. Blood pours from the wound as he gasps for breath. Around him, dark shadows close in. His eyes widen. The dark shadows turn to be his party members. The same people he fought alongside now stand before him as enemies. The old man steps forward expressionless, says that this is where we part ways. Confused and desperate, Luke tries to ask why. His voice is weak, barely holding on. The old man answers coldly, saying that the kingdom has placed a bounty on him. Luke blinks, shocked. The saintess steps forward, her eyes filled with guilt, asking Luke for forgiveness as this also hurts them, but they have no choice. Yelling, Luke asks why, the pain in his chest now burning with betrayal. Suddenly, a calm, brutal voice cuts through the chaos, saying that he is a monster. Luke looks up at her, stunned. The old man speaks, says that he is the only S-rank warrior in the kingdom and slay countless monsters while protecting the nation. But now, since the monster threats have decreased, he has become a new threat to kingdom. The old man explains that a single dragon can wipe out a nation, but a man who slays dragons alone can destroy even more. Luke stammers, while saying that he never thought to do such thing. Meanwhile, interrupting him, Saintess reply that who knows the future, as she raises her holy sword. Luke instinctively reaches for his own sword, but with a swift gesture, the old man snaps his fingers. Chains of pure magic coil around Luke, binding him in place. He can't move, can't fight. The old man speaks again, saying that, "Rest in peace by the hands of your comrades. That's all we can do for you now." Seeing Luke struggles against the chains, a party member snickers, commenting that, "How pathetic. He is the same man who slayed dragons." A girl standing behind the old man also speaks, that the master magic is incredible. Meanwhile, Luke says that this may be a mistake while looking at the L. Then the old man ordered L to kill Luke. Stepping forward, L raised her wand to attack Luke, while Luke looked her with gaze. Suddenly, her hand trembled. Her eyes water. She begins to cry. The others look at her, disappointed. The saintess steps forward to take over. By holding her holy sword over Luke, she asked if he had any last words. Luke looks up, his eyes sharp, no longer confused, but burning with fury, said to remember this. With a flash of divine steel, everything fades to black, and Luke's head falls to the ground. 3 months later, after the betrayal of S-rank warrior Luke, far from the grand kingdoms and war-torn cities, in the remote region of Azima, life seemed peaceful on the surface. But chaos was erupting within a small village. A swarm of demonic bees had attacked. Villagers ran in fear, trying to protect their homes. In the center of the panic stood a mysterious masked man, cloaked in black, facing down the beasts. Across from him, a young woman watched in fear and confusion. Her name was Lelam, the village's apothecary. The masked man stepped forward, voice calm but firm. "Stay back," he told Lelam. He raised his hand. "Pest control begins." With a powerful chant, Lugo, the masked man, unleashed a fiery spell. Flames burst outward in all directions, engulfing the demonic bees. Every insect was reduced to ash in seconds, but so was everything around them. Trees, grass, leaves, even the ground scorched black under the intensity of the magic. The village erupted into cheers. Lugo had saved them all, but as the flames died out, Lelam stood in silence, staring at the devastation. Her eyes weren't filled with admiration, but suspicion, since she has never seen magic like that. Later, in the village chief's house, Lelam slammed her hand on the table, saying something is off about Lugo. The old chief, calm and collected, looked at her and asked, what exactly is bothering her? Lelam thought carefully, then listed the strange events one by one. Last week, he handled a pack of wolves, alone. The week before that, he scared off a charging cyclops, just by looking at it. And before that, he crushed a group of thieves, in one night. The chief smiled and asked Lelam, shouldn't they thankful for that? Lelam groaned and rubbed her forehead, answering yes, but still it's strange. She paused. 3 months ago, Luke, the S-rank adventurer, died, and that's the same time Lugo showed up in our village. She leaned closer and her eyes sharp. What if Lugo killed Luke? What if he's hiding a bounty on his head? He never even takes off his helmet. The chief chuckled. Then we're lucky he hasn't decided to kill us too. Besides, since he arrived, nothing bad has happened. Lelam sighed. His logic was frustratingly simple, but it didn't erase her doubts. Still unconvinced, she asked, where is Lugo now? The chief replied casually that he has sent Lugo to deal with Black Bear. Hearing this, Lelam's eyes widened. Then she told Chief not to treat monster extermination as a grocery errand. Determined to uncover the truth, Lelam ventured into the forest alone. Raising her finger, she cast a spirit spell, summoning a guiding spirit to track Lugo's presence. The glowing wisp fluttered ahead, leading her deeper into the woods. Her thoughts raced as she followed the trail. Who are you really, Lugo? Eventually, she spotted him. Or so she thought. Lugo was sitting on the ground, perfectly still. He wasn't moving, not sleeping, just still. Lelam crouched behind some bushes, watching silently, confused by what he was doing. But before she could react, a voice whispered behind her, asking her that what she was doing here. She turned, startled, and gasped. Lugo stands right behind her, shocked. Lelam asked Lugo how did he appear behind her. He responded calmly, saying that it was his afterimage. Lelam blinked. Then she shouts on Lugo, asking what kind of ordinary person used stuff like that. However, Lugo asked her what she was doing here. She quickly tried to cover her suspicion, saying that she just came to check on Lugo when she heard Lugo went to forest to deal with Black Bear. Comforting Lelam, Lugo said not to worry since he has set up traps to catch them. Lelam frowned at Lugo, saying that even knights from the royal capital struggle to capture black bears, and he is trying to catch them with trap. Lugo didn't argue. Instead, he said Lelam to stay here and watch from her own eyes. He placed a beehive dripping with honey on the forest floor. Around it, he silently cast a gravity spell, warping the space like a trap hidden in plain sight. Then, he and Lelam hid behind nearby bushes, waiting in silence. Minutes passed. Suddenly, a massive black bear emerged from the woods, drawn by the sweet scent of honey. It growled, its eyes locked onto the hive, and then it charged. Like a man possessed, the beast dashed toward the bait, its mind clouded by hunger and instinct. But the moment it stepped inside the circle, crack, the pressure collapsed. The bear's body was flattened instantly, crushed by overwhelming force. Lelam stared in disbelief, thinking how is this even possible? Time passed, and more bears approached the trap. One by one, they were all caught, crushed under the same gravity spell. By the end of the hunt, a mountain of black bears lay in a heap. Leland was speechless, thinking even taking down one is challenge, but Lugo captured 10 within no time. She looked at Lugo. He remained calm, quiet, as if nothing unusual had happened. But Lilim's heart burned with curiosity. She was now more desperate to find Lugo's identity. Late at night, Lilim sat by candlelight, writing in her diary. Her pen moved slowly across the pages as she reflected on recent events. Since the disappearance of S-rank adventurer Luke, monster threats have spiked worldwide. Farms had been destroyed, livestock stolen, and transport systems thrown into chaos. And now, even the remote Azima village was beginning to feel the weight of that chaos. The next morning, Leland stood frozen in shock, sweat dripping down her face, as she heard that carriage had been attacked and all the supplies were stolen. The coachman, still catching his breath, explained. It was the silfs. They ambushed him on the road. He barely managed to protect a few crates. Lilim rushed to inspect what was salvaged, but when she opened the crate, her heart sank. It was filled with empty bottles. She slumped against it, defeated, thinking now how she will prepare medicine. Suddenly, shouting echoed through her ears. An old woman screamed in horror. Her precious sweet buns had been stolen. Lilim tried to calm her down, saying that they still have buns in the village. But the old woman snapped back and shouts on Lilim, telling those were S-rank buns. Absolute masterpieces. She can't live without them. Lilim blinked. S-rank buns? For a moment, even she thought about trying one herself. Just then a voice called out, asking why all are making fuss. Lilim turned, ready to explain, and then froze. Lugo stood in front of her, holding a crate. The coachman immediately pointed, telling, "That's the stolen crate." Lugo calmly explained by saying that he found some silfs making a mess on the edge of the village. They had these supplies, so he took them back. The coachman nodded, stunned, thanking Lugo for saving him. Lilim's eyes lit up. Thanking Lugo, she said now she can make medicine. The villagers began checking their goods with relief, but Lilim noticed something and asked Lugo if something wrong. Lugo paused. Then he said there should be more crate. He looked at the crate again and frowned. Judging by the size of the carriage, these are too few. A lot is still missing. As if on cue, the old woman screamed again. Her buns are still missing. Lilim immediately rushed to check her supplies. And her fears came true. Her own crate was empty too. Lugo realized that he had been fooled by silfs. Furious, Lugo clenched his fists, then slammed his foot into the ground. Crack, leaving a crater in his wake. Without a word, Lugo turned and stormed into the forest. Lilim, concerned for village, followed Lugo. As they walked, Lugo glanced sideways. Looking at Lilim, he asking her why she is following him. Lilim replied nervously. She just wanted to observe. Unbeknownst to them, they were already being watched. From a distance, hidden in the trees, a sly figure smirked. It was a sylph named Pesha. "Heh, last time he caught me off guard," she murmured. "But this time, I've set tons of traps just for him." Suddenly, without hesitation, Lugo raised his hand and launched a fire spell straight at her location. Boom! Pesha crashed to the ground, coughing from the smoke. Before she could flee, Lugo grabbed her by the head and ordered her to take them to her queen. They walked deeper into the great tree forest. Pesha, now acting cooperative, handed over a map with all traps marked. "She lives beneath the forest's heart," Pesha explained. "These are all the traps on the way. Now that you have it, let me go?" Lugo's reply was sharp and simple. "No." Hearing this, Pesha burst into tears, telling Lugo that he is cruel. Lilim feel pity on Pesha and ask Lugo to release her, since they have a map, so they don't need her anymore. But instead of answering, Lugo pulled Pesha close and suddenly began tickling her. "What? What are you doing?" Pesha flailed in embarrassment. Something fell to the ground. Lilim leaned down to pick it up and asked Pesha if she dropped something. Suddenly her face turned red. In her hand was a pair of underwear, her underwear, which was she wearing a movement ago. Her voice trembled. She asked Peisha that why she have her underwear. Lugo, calm as ever, spoke. It's a classic silf trick. She used her theft magic to steal your clothes to create an opening for escape. Lelam narrowed her eyes and asked Peisha if that's true. Peisha immediately pointed her finger towards Lugo, saying not to believe his words. Maybe it was all Lugo's plan. Lilam's face flushed even deeper and said, he may look suspicious, but she knows Lugo wouldn't do that. Lugo simply added, believing sylphs is pointless. Lilam took a breath, then turned to Peisha with fury in her eyes, ordered her to take them straight to her queen. Sometime later, deep within the giant tree forest, a storm of fire and fury rained down upon the sylph's nest. The winged beings screamed and scattered in all directions, fleeing for their lives. Trees crackled, smoke twisted in the air, and the peaceful forest turned into a war zone. At the center of it all was Lugo, merciless and silent, his magic blazing through the air. Beside him, Peisha, still bound in ropes, guided them through the burning paths, leading both Lugo and Lilam toward their destination. Eventually, they reached a colossal gate embedded in the roots of an enormous sacred tree. This is the Queen's chamber, Peisha said, her tone playful, hiding something behind her smile. Lilam stepped forward, narrowing her eyes, asked Peisha if there is any trap inside. Peisha giggled. Of course not. It's sacred. No traps allowed. But Lilam didn't trust that smile. Lugo, she warned, don't let your guard down. Without hesitation, Lugo raised his hand and cast a powerful fire spell. Boom! The giant gate exploded into pieces, blown apart by a single blast of magic. Peisha stared at the wreckage in shock. Inside, lying on the floor, was a graceful woman dressed in royal attire, the fairy queen Tiemia. She rose to her feet slowly, coughing as blood trickled from her lips. Lilam stepped back, shocked to see that she survived that blast. Tiemia smiled coldly. Magic of that level doesn't affect me. But her body betrayed her. She coughed blood again. Lugo narrowed his eyes and asked Fairy Queen if that the blessing of Fairy King. Tiemia smirked, saying, yes, and no one can lay a finger on her. Lugo stepped forward, eyes burning, asked Tiemia about supplies that they have stolen from the village. The queen tilted her head, making herself look like that she don't know anything, and asked Lugo what he is talking about. Lugo didn't flinch. By changing question, he asked Queen that what they are planning to do by stealing weapons and drugs. Tiemia's smile widened, answering straight that they want war. Her words silenced the chamber. Even Lelam was stunned. Tiemia's voice turned cold. Revealing her plan, she said that since the only S-ranked adventurer Luke has died, this is her perfect opportunity. Without him, humanity is weak. We'll conquer the humans and take what's rightfully ours. Suddenly, she pointed her finger at Lilam. Before Lugo could react, a strange light enveloped Lelam's body. Her soul began to rise, pulled from her chest by an invisible force. Lugo shouted, but it was too late. Lilam's body collapsed into his arms, soulless, lifeless. Tiemia held the floating soul in her grasp, smiling with twisted pleasure, while saying that her theft magic can even steal souls. She turned her hand toward Lugo next. She activated her magic again. A blinding light surged around her, but nothing happened. Confused, the queen's smile faded. She tried again. Still nothing happened. Tiemia unable to figure out why her magic is not working. Meanwhile, Lugo raised his head, his voice cold. Explaining Tiemia, he said that her magic will not work on someone with greater magical power than her. Hearing this, Tiemia's eyes widened. Meanwhile, Peisha said there is no way an ordinary human could have greater magical power than Tiemia. But Lugo said nothing. Instead, he raised his hands and removed his helmet. Red hair fell free, and a familiar, piercing gaze stared back at them. Tiemia's eyes went wide, unable to believe. Meanwhile, Peisha asked Tiemia if something wrong. Tiemia spoke slowly, trembling. She said that The previous fairy queen once warned her not to cross paths with some humans. The S-rank adventurers. Her voice cracked. But he was supposed to be dead? Hearing Her Majesty's word, Paisha's eyes wide open, unable to believe. Yes, the queen whispered. This man is Luke Othyde. In this world, there exists a power called blessing, and our boy Luke has the blessing of the phoenix. The miracle granted by that divine bird is immortality. In other words, our boy cannot die. With fearsome gaze, Luke says that he will take Lilim's soul and cargo back.